Cascade Hoops Talk. Billy D here. Hey, we have a real treat for everybody. Coach DeLano Thomas, head coach, Shawnee State, the defending national champions. We're going to talk to Coach Thomas about how Shawnee State went 4-2 and then swept the Mid-South regular season and tournament championships and went on to win the NAIA National Tournament crown. Coach Thomas earned the NAIA Coach of the Year award, the Don Meyer Coach of the Year award, and the HoopDirt.com NAIA Coach of the Year award. Along with Coach Thomas's accolades, E.J. Onu, James Jones, Myle Thomas, and Armir Gilmore were all named All Mid-South, and that's a new program record. We're really delighted to have Coach Thomas on today, and he'll be with us in just one moment. Billy D back here. Like I said, we're thrilled today. We have DeLano Thomas, head coach at Shawnee State, defending national champions. Welcome, Coach.
Thanks for having me. How you doing today?
I'm doing very well, and I really appreciate you taking the time. I know it's getting to be a busy time of the year for you. You know, Coach, we got to start. You go 4-2. You go on to win 27 straight. First national championship for Shawnee State at your alma mater. I mean, talk about that.
It's one of them movie type moments, I'll say. You know, just to have the opportunity to be able to coach, just in general, it's truly a blessing. And have the opportunity to coach at my alma mater, it's just been really special to be able to do it. You know, every coach, I would say, who wants to set their goal on winning a national championship, and you try to get your team to see that light at the end of the tunnel, especially when you haven't done it before. Just to go 4-2, to have two tough losses, at that time, I thought that was probably the best thing for us. We were kind of trying to get our team to totally buy into what we were telling them and just the potential that we had to be a national champion. But we knew we had to take the little steps on coming together. I just remember losing those two games, having a meeting in the hotel, talking to our team about it, and just really asking them again what were their goals. Because a lot of times coaches have goals based on our vision that we see in our team, but sometimes it doesn't match up within what your players see for themselves. So we allowed them to really talk instead of us kind of leading the conversation. And they talked about what they wanted to do, and they talked about how we needed to do it. And it was good to hear them actually speak and kind of get everything on the table for guys that needed to come together more, stuff that we needed to work on, stuff that we needed to do less. And we have the kind of staff that we want to be transparent with our team and be open about everything. And I think that's where that relationship started to build for the coaches with the players. And then we really became a family.
So, Coach, that's interesting that you were able to turn it around that quick. What do you think? What was the one or two keys to the turnaround? What were your learnings? What changed?
Just to be able to feel what the Mid-South was, our league, really what college basketball was like. My previous experience of coaching, I had coached overseas as I played, but my only college coaching experience was being an assistant coach at Shawnee before I took over. So when you take that next chair, I thought, all my X's and O's and stuff that we were going to do, I was going to implement that, and we would be able to take off and, have success right away. We did, but we didn't come together. I didn't take into account of how important those relationships are and how, invested you have to be with your staff as long as with your players. And, that's something that those first couple of years had to realize how to self-evaluate more, just kind of not think my way of coaching and my way of thinking was always the best way. So it was good to go through that trial and error just because I'm the type of guy where I want to get better.
Right.
So it was good to have that, but it made me hungry because we took a lot of loss within those years of games that I thought was winnable, but the team wasn't believing in the vision yet. You try to get the right guys around that can start to say the same things that you're saying as a coach, and that's what we did these past couple of years. But my staff just really did a tremendous job on also believing in the vision that I had and and it became what we had, and we all just excelled in our roles.
Coach, you talked about, your career and, the transition, you kind of a long haul getting back to Shawnee State. But let's go back to, Beechcraft High in Columbus, Ohio. I mean, kind of a
Yeah.
basketball factory there. I'm curious what it
hmm
was like to play basketball there.
Man, I mean, it's. I look at it. I look at it in just a totally different way now than I did in that moment. Just because I realized the path that I had to go through was really, to mold the guys that I have right now. And when you think about Beechcroft back then, I graduated in '99, so '95 to '99, we played in the City League out there in Columbus, and it was a brutal league. You have so many talented guys and players, going on various levels. It was just a test. It was just a test for you. If you were able to really compete in that league, you would be able to be successful. When it got to the state tournaments, it was great situation where I had a group of guys that I came up with that we were all really good friends. We all really loved to play basketball. We all had dreams of winning. So we got ourselves to a state Final Four, and I just remember losing that game to Ketterington Alter at that time. That's something that always sticks with you when you have those moments, and just to have that environment, just to see how it was. I would say it kind of fueled this moment we just had this year on being able to tell those stories to those guys of
Mhm.
what we went through, what we invested into, how close we were as a team, but ultimately still being as good as we were, but not actually being able to win it all. And that happens a lot of times in sports where you only get one champion, but that doesn't mean these other teams are not very, very good and they put a lot of time into it. Those Beechcroft years really molded me and fueled me for where I am right now.
So, Coach Thomas, you left Beechcroft. You went over to Clark State. I think you played there 2 years. What made
One
you
year, one
1 year?
year.
Okay. What
Mhm.
made you eventually settle on Shawnee State? What drew you to Shawnee?
I started at John Logan, went there for a semester. 17-year-old going to John Logan, just had some success at Beechcroft. Just wasn't ready for college in that moment. Just to
Hmm.
be honest with you, wasn't ready for my coach to. The funniest story I always tell my players is I told the coach I went to the gym to work out on my own, and I felt like in that moment I was looking for my coach to pat me on the back and tell me good job, and he actually just told me so, like do it again. Like it doesn't happen in one day, and I just remember my face. If I could have had a mirror, my eyes just kind of opened and my mouth was open. Like I can't believe he just said that. I thought he was going to give me praise, and I'm actually doing extra work, and it was a total opposite. And in that moment, I didn't realize I needed that tough love to take that next step, and he was actually molding me to be better and pushing me, but mentally I wasn't ready to be mature enough to handle that situation. So that's when I decided to transfer to Clark State, and I think my whole pretty much collegiate, path was always about playing with someone I knew. I went to John Logan because I had some guys that was from Columbus that was there, and I ultimately went to Clark State because I knew some guys that were there. And at Clark State, I still wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to fully just dive into, okay, not that I was a problem when it came to coaching. I was probably one of your most coachable kids, but I didn't realize how good I could possibly be and what I needed to do to invest into it. So I go to Clark State, don't take care of my business fully academically or on the court, but still, D1s were reaching out and offering and showing interest. But ultimately, I choose to go to Shawnee State because my best friend was there at that time, and Phil Dupree, he had transferred there. So I decided to transfer there. But at that time, I'm now 2021. I finally was in the mode of it doesn't matter who the coach is, doesn't matter what the coach says, doesn't matter anything. I'm just ready to be better and really be a sponge. So I took those 2 years and really had some success. My first year was second team all conference. My role was totally different. We had a guy on the team, and Andre Horton, who averaged 26 points the year before I got there, and he was just a bona fide scorer. And we had Antoine Lavender, who was our point guard, who was an All-American at that time. And we had just a very good team. So I was able to play my role, and everything worked. But that next year, everything kind of changed with injuries and different stuff to where it got me to being an All-American, as well as being a player of the year in the conference. That opened up a lot of doors for me to play professionally. So I was truly thankful for it. I just kind of look back on that path of what I did from Beechcroft to Clark State, John Logan in there as well, to Shawnee State. In those moments, you think it's about you, but it's really about the lessons that you're learning to be able to soon, whatever path you choose, whether it's coaching or you have kids, it's really to give them all that information so they can be better when they have their moment. That's kind of where I am now when it comes to my coaching.
Coach DeLano, I have a question for you. You were known as a rebounder and a shot blocker. And a good shot blocker is actually rarer than a good rebounder. They're hard to find. What is the key? Why were you such a good shot blocker?
I would say my first God blessed me with long arms, so I got to use them. And that was the number one. The number two, just the knack of winning. Growing up, I wasn't a scorer. I knew my role, always playing with older guys. So, if you wanted to go to the park and play, you probably wasn't going to shoot the ball when you go to the park, play with the older guys. So the way to be on the floor, on the court, you had to play defense. So that's always been something that stuck with me. And then I just remember early on, one of my coaches told me, if you want the ball and you want to touch the ball, the best way to do it is to rebound the ball. I just always went after the basketball. And even with a slender frame, and that doesn't mean you can't be a rebounder. I mean, rebounding is a skill. You gotta want to go after it, learn different techniques of how to box out. And, I just wanted to excel at it. And I knew that was a way to help my team win.
Well, it served you well. Like you said, you were first team All-American at Shawnee State. You went on, you played all over Europe. What eventually made you want to be a coach?
Honestly, when I played professionally, that was a way of, if you wanted to do anything within like the club that you played for, you can get into coaching, youth teams, club teams. And, I started off coaching, young U12 and U15, like under 12 and under 15 boys and girls, and kind of moved to U18, U21. And really just fell in love with the development side, because a lot of times the kids were not as talented as you might see here in the States, but they had the work ethic that they wanted to get better. And that was, something that kind of drew me even closer to it, just seeing that somebody took enjoyment on getting better and, overcoming their not having confidence in themselves. For me, that was dead on with who I was. I was one of those guys that couldn't see it right away. But now I had the other side of being able to instill it. And I was like, man, this is very rewarding. This does not feel like work. So eventually in 2014, I had an injury where I dislocated my hip for the second time. I said, that's enough. That's enough of me trying to play. My time is done. Came back home and literally was reaching out to, every coach I could think. But at that time, I didn't understand how it worked. As far as those relationships that you build with coaches and people are crucial. Like, that's ultimately who's going to potentially hire you. And I really didn't have a base when it came to that, because, pretty much the past 10 years I was overseas, playing basketball. So I was really on the verge of just getting a regular job. I got hired at FedEx and fired at FedEx in 24 hours. So I'm like, okay, I'm happy. I got a job. Yes. And they're like, well, you haven't been in the country longer than, to a certain point. I think it was over like 6 months. You have to be back in the country to be able to, deal with packages and different stuff. So I'm like, wow, I just got fired. Like, what is,
There
what am I
goes a
going to do now?
promising FedEx career.
Right. So I'm like, okay. I had reached out to my previous coach at Shawnee State. He didn't need any help at that time. So, I'm just kind of scrambling, just trying to figure it out. But he calls me in September, like, something opened up. I really can't pay you much, but, it's an opportunity. I said, I'll be there on the next flight. I came on the next flight. This was 14-15 season and just kind of dived right into it. I just remember we took our first loss to UNOH, and I'm the assistant. And just to remember how the guys were in the locker room, we lost by like 30 points.
Wow.
And I really just chewed into the guys. I was only the assistant at that time, but I chewed into them so bad that the head coach had sat down. He was like, he's letting them have it. And I just realized, like, man, I care so much about not just winning, but utilizing your ability while you have it. That took off from me on, like, man, this is something I really want to do. So during that time, I still didn't have my BA yet. So I was going to school, working at our circle desk. So I'm basically working from morning to 11 o'clock at night every day just to try to get everything going. So I graduated in about 2 years in 16, and I take over in 17. It opens up for me to take over in 17. So it was like I said, a movie type of situation where I can't make that up, but that's how it played out. Was I ready for the situation in that moment? I thought I was, but honestly I wasn't. As I said, I thought it was so much about the X's and O's, and it was so much more about how invested I needed to be into the university, to what goes on in every office, and just that was just a learning curve I had to have within these first couple of years. Honestly, I'm thankful for it all because, I'm just taking it all in, with everything that's been going on for me.
Well, DeLano, I got to admit, you're the first coach I've ever talked to whose backup career plan was coaching after the FedEx career fell through. That was
Hey,
coaching was your backup plan to FedEx.
I promise. I mean, I reached out to coaches, man. It sounds, funny, and it sounds so weird, but that's a true story. But I would reach out to coaches, and they would tell me, I didn't have relationships with them, but they were like, your resume and everything looks great, but honestly, I don't know you enough to hire you.
Right.
We can go to lunch, but I can't hire you. And for me, I just was like, it all like that. I was surprised that's how it worked. I thought I was already, qualified into showing that I could coach, but it was much more to it. So
yeah,
I just had to learn in that moment.
So, Coach, let's talk about last year. I mean, a
Yes, sir.
fairy tale season. You go 31-2. You win the Mid-South, which I want to talk about in a minute. It's a tremendous conference. You're number one in blocks in the country, number one in field goal defense, one of the top rebounding teams in the country. Talk about last year's team, boy.
Last year's team was last year was just in general was just a difficult year for not just for student athletes but just people in general of how it was. You go from that year before we make it to our first national tournament. We're sitting in the office, preparing. We just got our seeding the day before. We're kind of writing our list of, okay, this is what I got to do. This is what you got to do. Let's get these flights. Let's try to figure all this out. This was all new to us. We had never made it. So we're trying to figure all that stuff out to then, getting a call like, well, it's canceled. And we're like, okay, well, it's canceled, man. Well, you're not having it. It's over. Having to tell those guys who just went to pack their bags to come back to the office that, ultimately we had 6 seniors. Then like, hey, your collegiate career is over. Like that's it. We got a lot of tears going around. I'm crying, not knowing what's next. To then just being in the house the next 3 months of, wow, we're recruiting again. We're trying to figure this out. But so much happened. Like my son was 2 at the time, and if that time doesn't happen, maybe I don't really invest enough time to potty training. He gets potty trained because I'm home through that pandemic. Like that was a blessing. But for myself and my staff, Coach Lindell Yarbrough and Coach Jack Trainer, like I got two of the best coaches in the business right now, as well as a lot of other guys within my staff that are doing a tremendous job within what we do. But we all just, every day, the recruitment side of we were taking turns calling kids, just some kids wasn't working. We lost so many kids within those months, but to get the kids that we ultimately got and then not being able to bring them in on campus for a visit or anything for them to see us in person. Like we had to FaceTime some of those kids. So really the first time we met them was when we started school, and it was different. So everything had to be a little bit different. Our first Zoom videos of just doing, Coach Lynn made the whole team do insanity. We're doing insanity because I think we got caught with contact tracing. Our strength coach had came down with COVID, and everybody else was good, and the kids of not understanding like, but why do we have to quarantine if we're not positive, and still being able to keep their mental in the right place.
Right.
Like that was difficult because our opening games we couldn't even play our opening games because of that situation, and then the other teams that we were going to face, they actually had COVID issues as well, so it wasn't going to happen. So you look at November when we start those first couple games, guys are not in shape, guys are not together. We haven't fully put in everything that we're trying to do with them, and to go 4-2 in that month, like that was great. I would say in that point, but we knew we needed to take another step because we've seen the ability that the team had. Then you have three of our top guys kind of having to sit that first half, that first semester, but you still have a lot of talented guys. Like we were trying to figure it all out. When you kind of speed it up and you piece that together with that journey right there, and then you get to the streak we had, guys really started to enjoy practice. We made a small bubble in school where, we weren't allowed to have fans. There weren't students on campus living. So it was really a small bubble of just being us. So those relationships that we built, the time invested, like we really did everything together. So when we actually got to that national tournament and got out of the Mid-South, it really, really just showed how together you and guys really enjoyed it. So it's one of them stories that we're constantly going to be telling. And as I'm telling it now, more memories come to my mind that I
Yeah.
didn't even think about.
Coach, there was a couple of key pieces out of that team last year that have graduated, moved on. I mean, you got to talk
Yeah.
about EJ Onu. Oh my gosh, can that guy
Well,
150 blocks last year?
I mean, he had 150, but he could have had, over 200 if some of those times he would have jumped. It's just he was he's a special rare breed. We always tell him he's a creative player. Coach Lynn would always tell him he's a 2K player. Off the video game of some of the stuff he could do. But EJ was a 4-year guy for us. He came here at 17 and just similar to me, where he wanted to play defense first when I played. But, this just an overall freakish athlete that became just a guy that wanted to be a part of the team to ultimately being a leader of the team with his work ethic, with kids always on time. He graduates in 4 years. He stays with us through having years of trying to figure it out, not really winning, guys transferring to ultimately him being the top recruiter on our team, of him contacting the recruits as well that was coming in, like just working on those connections, that he just is somebody that is only going to get better within his game, but also just a great person, like just a humble guy that is really just evolving in everything that he's doing.
And then also gone this year is James Jones. He was not only in the top 6 in scoring nationally,
Hmm.
but top 12 in assists, so he could score it or dish it. You're really going to miss
Yeah,
him, Coach.
we are. I mean, James was somebody, coaching wise, you have to make sure, even for EJ, like you have to make sure that if you are kind of stuck on the way that you want to play, it may not work for those guys. So you have to really transform how you want to play for them a little bit more. And for James, you got to let the kid play. You know, we opened the floor up a lot of times because he made the right decisions. He got his teammates involved, but still was able to, get his own game going. And I think just his poise, his maturity at that time on the court really settled us as a team a lot of times. And look forward to seeing him do a lot of great things this year as he transferred, as a grad transfer this year to play at Coastal Carolina. I just know he's going to continue to grow and just continue just to use this moment that he had to have a chance to be a pro if he wants to, or if he just wants to get a regular job, just because he has the mindset that he has now that he is a champion.
But we don't want the fans in Portsmouth, Ohio to dismay, because your cupboard's definitely not bare. You have some key returners. You and I talked before. I mean, you got Amir Gilmore. He's a junior out of East Point, Michigan. He played long minutes for you last year.
He did. Amir was one of those guys that we got at the break. So he played half a year, but he came right in. Amir is one of those unselfish players that defended the best, player on the other team most times. He's an offensive rebounding nightmare. Just one of the most talented players you're going to find in NAIA. With him, Latavius Mitchell, Donovan Carlisle, Miles Thomas, Trey Beard, Isaac Abergut, Sean Parrish, Jaquil Wells, like having those guys back, this is probably the most players we have had back, in a returning season since I've been here. Typically what happens at this level is kind of like a big turnover rate, especially with our league being not so many high school type guys that you bring to your program. So just to have all those guys back just shows a lot. Shows a lot of not just because we won, but because they, really enjoyed each other. They kind of see a little bit of what we're trying to do and what we were able to do. They're getting better and they're maturing, as young men, which has been great to see.
And you mentioned several of those young men. I was going through your roster. Jaquil Wells, he had 85 assists last year and 45 steals. He must have some quick hands, or does he have a nose for the ball?
I'm gonna say a little bit of both. He was a high school quarterback, and now is a point guard for us. So he's super tough kid, but he's one of our captains. He's definitely just somebody that shows in what you just said in regards to his assists, to turnover, to his steals. It's all about the team, his stats. It doesn't show completely if you're looking at the scoring of what he can do, because he definitely can still score the ball, but, he does the little things to make our team better. And we have a lot of guys that are like that.
And, Coach, of course, Donovan Carlisle and Miles Thomas, they're just going to be really critical for you. I think they're going to be a great foundation for you as you start out in this new season, defending that national championship.
Yes, definitely. DC and MT, those guys did a good job growing this summer. Their maturity level has grown. Those are two guys that have been in different situations, but they understand the route that they went through, which is similar to mine, on going to different schools, but now trying to put it all together, now trying to tell their stories in a different way. So I'm excited for those guys to have this year, because ultimately, last year would have been their senior year, but, bringing them back allows them to have the opportunity to graduate and get their bachelor's, which is great for them. Some of these guys like myself, I didn't really see graduating as a high priority at that time, but now, I'm able to instill that into these guys and how important it is, and getting that degree on how, that completion feeling feels. And they had the same thing when we won the championship. It's something nobody can take away from you, all the work you put into it. So I'm excited for those two guys. That's our two seniors that we do have coming back.
Now, you had a hold. We talked about E.J. Onu graduating. You had a hole to fill. You went out and got Cortez Cooper. He's another guy who's taken a long route to Shawnee State. He went through Southern Utah, LSU, Triton State, but he's a big body, 6'10".
Cortez has came and really just started working. It's been great to see that because a lot of times when you get D1 transfers, especially at our level, you wonder how they're gonna translate right away. Are they going to feel like they're still at D1, that they're better than everybody, or are they going to come down with their team and just say, I'm just one of you guys, and I just want to get better. I want to, come to the team's goals and try to put it all together. And he's been just that. So it's been good to see that. And Cortez is somebody that won a JUCO championship his freshman year, then transferred to LSU, then to Southern Utah, where things does not go his way, to where now he's going to have an opportunity to play again. Just looking forward to that. Even though I'm a coach, man, we get so excited as we're fans of our own players at times when they're doing everything right. When they do everything right, that's when, myself, our staff, we love to just watch the success that they're going to have. And I think he's going to have a successful season.
Well, DeLano, you picked up another transfer. He went to a high school you might have heard of, Beechcroft, over in Columbus, and he played at Columbus State, 6'7" transfer Elijah Bishop.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. A lot of these guys, and this is a funny story. I can just tell you for Elijah, I've been recruiting Elijah for about 3 years, on trying to get him to, come be a part of our family, come work with me, allow me to help him to reach his goals. At this level, sometimes kids will overlook you, but to finally get him here has been truly great. And it's not just a basketball thing. Within what we do, we really take a lot of interest into our guys, that we want to really see them be successful, and we really try to build relationships with our players. Already having those 3 years and that history has been great. Him coming from Beechcroft is always awesome as well. But I think Elijah, with his energy and his ability to just have a high motor, I think he's going to give us a different feel that we didn't really have last year from our wing position.
So it looks like you have a good roster. You filled some gaps. You got some exciting transfers coming in.
Yeah.
Coach, I wanted to ask you about, the Mid-South is one of the tougher conferences in the country. You've got you've several perennial plot powers, but I mean, Georgetown, Life, those two have been there forever. They're always in the mix. Thomas More. I'm going to stop naming teams. People are going to get mad at me, but it's a fantastic conference. Tell me about playing in the Mid-South.
Yeah, when you talk about the Mid-South, you definitely have to name every team. Excuse me.
Yep.
I would say definitely at our side, for the men's side, it's no off day. You can't say, well, this is going to be an easy game or that's going to be an easy game. Actually, Shawnee State used to be that easy game. That used to be the one where teams are like, okay, this is going to be a win. And that was something that definitely fueled our staff and then our players to the success that we have right now. But the Mid-South it's hard because, a few of the guys I didn't mention of our new guys that we have coming in, and Khalil Johnson, who's a D1 transfer. You got Dre Boyd, who came out of John Logan, where I went, and then you got Jaden Geist, from Columbus as well, out of high school. Those guys get a great opportunity to be a part of it, but you really can't recruit a lot of high school kids in the Mid-South and be successful. It's very difficult because a lot of times you're playing against 22, 23-year-olds. Bodies are developed. Their mindset might be a little bit different. Their experience is a little different. Honestly, being in the Mid-South for some years, we had to watch your Georgetowns, your Pikevilles, your teams that ultimately everybody who was being successful, because everybody was ahead of us. So we had to watch every team and just see how they were being successful. Like, what is their blueprint? Everybody's pretty much a great recruiter on getting the kids that they like and they want. But just instilling that toughness in the Mid-South. Mid-South is tough. You play that Thursday to Saturday, and maybe you have a Monday game. Like, man, your off days of recovery and trying to prepare for that next team is hard. It's extremely hard. So it's always you're being tested by how together is your team, how tough is your team. Is your team going to really do the little things to rebound, make free throws late? Can you win on the road in the Mid-South? it's extremely hard to win on the road in the Mid-South. So for us to have done what we did this year, this goes down as one of the most, I'll let people talk about it how they want to, but arguably one of the best teams to ever play in the Mid-South. What we were able to accomplish. Winning 18 games, that doesn't happen. That's not something that you think is going to happen in Mid-South. You pretty much want to take care of home if you can, and if you can split your road games, there you go. The Mid-South is constantly loaded. Coaches do a very good job of preparing their teams, getting what they like, what they need, very talented staffs. I'm always excited by that, and I think something that we noticed when we went to the national tournament, the Mid-South prepared us for that national tournament, and that was huge for us this year. It was a lot of talented conferences out there, but I would definitely have to say the Mid-South is the top conference in the NAIA.
So, Coach Thomas, what are the bus trips like? How far do you have to travel?
Oh man, we're gonna be talking for a long time on here with that one. 'Cause we probably had the hardest road, I would say. Pretty much we're the only Ohio school. If you count Thomas More, they're kind of in that Kentucky, Cincinnati type area. We're basically playing through Kentucky, Tennessee, and then you got life in Georgia. The thing with that is you have to get off that bus ready to play. Because if you're not getting off that bus ready to play, halftime is going to come quick, and you're already down 20 points, and you're in the locker room on trying to play catch up, and that is going to be hard to do. Traveling in the Mid-South is extremely hard based on just how far you do have to travel for hours, on end. But just winning on other teams' floor with their environments are extremely difficult.
Yeah, it's getting that way all over America, isn't it? It's really getting tough to win on the road everywhere. And it seems like the toughest ones are either the bigger gyms that they pack. Those are always tough. The small cracker boxes, I call them, where you might get 300 or 400 fans, but it's just jam packed and hot and loud. Those are almost harder than the 2,500 facilities that are full.
I would agree with you on that. A lot of the Mid-South gyms, they're hot. You're sweating as a coach and you ain't even playing. You're warm before you even start warm-ups, and the atmosphere is great. If someone has not been to a Mid-South game and they're kind of tuning in on this call, like, please take that, take that opportunity. If you're a recruit, you're not familiar with the Mid-South, please go to a Mid-South game. Change your eyes to really what college basketball is all the way around.
And for any fan, NAIA basketball is the best entertainment value in America. I tell everybody that, and it's the truth. I don't know where else you can pay. I don't know how much it costs to get in around the country, but it's anywhere from $7 to $13 all across the country, and some of the best basketball in the nation.
Definitely.
Coach Thomas, I really want to thank you for being on the show. I want to congratulate you again on the national championship. It's so hard to even get to that Final Four and then to pull off that big win. I mean, congratulations. But guess what?
Thank you.
Everybody's gunning for you now, DeLano.
Hey, that's what we wanted. That's what we wanted. You don't play this game not to win, and that's the goal. To win that last game, and we were able to accomplish it. But we won on March 23rd, March 24th. It was all about preparing to try to build again for it. I think every team in America is doing the same thing right now, and we're excited for the challenge and opportunity. But I would say just the biggest thing for us, it's not thinking about, okay, we have to repeat, we have to win another national championship. If we're able to come together, if we're able to make it not about basketball, more about the little detail stuff, off the court to just really building a relationship with your teammate, with your coach, that's going to put us in a great position. So that's the part I'm excited about. Looking forward to starting practice here soon, and hopefully, one day I can meet you in person.
Oh, absolutely. That would be great. Well, Coach, I want to thank you so much again. Best of luck in the season. Look forward to seeing your team together again and see how your new recruits blend in with your veterans and, how you survive the Mid-South. So thank you, Coach.
No, thank you. Have a good one.